We live in a world where people are becoming more and more stressed by the day. They're becoming more and more anxious by the day. They're becoming more and more overwhelmed by the day. And so we're suffering with procrastination because all of those things can lead to us to doing nothing. And more people are not doing enough because they're procrastinating and pulling their phones out, doing all sorts of things. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to crush the overwhelm, and I'm going to show you how to stop procrastinating so you can start doing the things that you know that you need to start doing in your life. This is a common question that comes up all the time in our Facebook communities, in our programs, in everything. People are like, how do I stop being overwhelmed? How do I get stuff done? How do I stop procrastinating? All of these sorts of things. So I want to go through and give you a few little ideas and concepts and ways to crush that so you can start doing what you know that you want to do in your life. Now, to give you a little analogy, I want you to think about going to the shops. Imagine if you had 10 things to go to get from the shops and you went, okay, I've got to get this thing, 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 and I've got to get this thing. Just saying that sounds like a lot, but it's only 10 things. And so if you're walking around a shopping center and you didn't have anything written down, you just had to try and remember those 10 things. You'd be walking around going, what else did I need? And you'd be counting, and it'd be a somewhat stressful experience because you're trying to remember all these things and you probably end up with other things, and then you go, I forgot something, and you remember as soon as you get home, you'll be like, oh, that's what it was. And you know, it's just a big overwhelming experience, right? But if you had a list of those 10 things, you could just walk around, push the trolley, if that's what you've got, and you just tick off one thing, and you tick off the next, and tick off the next, tick off the next. Before you know it, you've got your 10 things, and it's a nice, easy, stress-free way of doing things. So I know it's quite a simple example, but the same thing happens in our life. We have so many things rolling up around inside of our mind, and we're trying to keep them there, we're trying to leave them there, and we're trying to get stuff done, and it's just confusing for everyone. One of the best things you can do is get things out of your mind and onto the paper, or just out of your mind at some level, right? And so if you're overwhelmed, write a list of all the things that you need to do, and then you can start coming back and prioritizing them. Every morning I use this form where I prioritize my day. And so I sit down and I'm like, what are the tasks that I'm going to do today, and how long is that going to take me? So I might have 5 personal things that I want to do, including my morning routine and all that kind of stuff, or whatever it is. Then I might have 5 to 10 business things that I want to do. And so I'll put, how long do I think that's going to take? And then that adds up. And so if that is something that's like ends up being 16 hours, I'm going to be like, well, I guess I'm probably taking too much off. What can I take off that? Or what can I delegate to get someone else to do? Because then I'm not trying to stress myself and get stuff done that's completely unrealistic. So that's the first step to understand with overwhelm, is to find out what's going on for you and how long it's actually going to take it. Is it realistic? Are you setting yourself up for failure by trying to do 1,000 things when you only have time to do 10? I mean, you're not a superhuman. No one is. We're never going to be able to do that unless we do 10 things at once, which is impossible, right? And so after I have how much time it's going to take, I then go through and like, what's the most priority? So it's like this one and this one and then this one, and it goes down in order. What's urgent? What needs to be done? What's going to make the biggest difference in my life? Like what is it that needs to get done first? And I prioritize it. And so then I know exactly what I'm doing all the time. So I don't have to worry about what else is going on, because I just see it and I'm like, this is next, this is next, this is next, this is next, this is next. The same thing can happen with people who maybe you have a lot of bills. It's quite common these days. It could be like you've got this, you've got to owe this person, you owe this person, you've got to pay this, got to pay this, got to pay this. And like in your head, it can seem like such a big thing. If we try and stick our head in the ground, it's gonna just make it worse. So the best thing you can do is just, again, write some kind of list or have some kind of spreadsheet where you can list all the things that you need to pay, when do they need to be paid by, how much they are, and prioritize them and be like, okay, cool, I need to pay this, I need to pay this, I need to pay this. Because at the end of the day, in that context, if we zoom out, have a big look, we are just on an island or a planet that's spinning around in the middle of nowhere. Literally, it's spinning around in the middle of nowhere. But we take our life so seriously. Zoom out for a second. In the whole scheme of things, in the 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 120 years you're on this planet, who knows how long for? Is it really gonna matter if you're a week or two later on one payment? Probably not. So don't get stressed about that. Don't get overwhelmed about that. Just allow yourself to create just a roadmap of where you're going to go and how you're going to pay these things off and what's priority. And you'll start realizing, you know, we don't need to do that right now. We can do this later and that'll be fine. And you're just going through, and each time you tick one off, you'll feel good about it. You'll feel like a little bit of dopamine come up because it's like, yes, I get to knock that one off. And that will keep helping you wanting to move forward. And it's like, you know, this one and this one and this one. I know previously, a few years ago when I first started this business, I had heaps going on and had all these bills coming out. I wasn't making enough money. So it was really just a tool for me to start debt management and worrying about what do I need to pay first? What do I need to pay first? And it was funny, the more I looked at it, the more money just seemed to roll up, and so it would pay for them. So that's a really important thing. I think a lot of people get overwhelmed and stressed about their financial position. The best thing you can do is track. If you can't measure what you don't track. So have some kind of basic budget, have some kind of basic outgoings and ingoings, and how much you know that you can spend at each week, and go through all of those things, which is gonna leave so much overwhelm for, you know, it won't be in your mind. You won't have any overwhelm around that. So those are the few things about overwhelm, is to get them out of your head and to stop just letting them swirl around, because 10 things swirling around in your head can seem like lots, but 10 things on a paper just seem like 10 things, and you just go through and you prioritize them and tick them off, get them done, add more to it if you need to, but then you can just look and go, what do I need to do next, or what's next to pay, and then you can have a good snapshot of it. There's no point worrying about anything else, because that's what it is right now. Like, it can't be any other way. Now it is about just working through that and seeing what else can I do to, if it's financially, what else can I do to pay that down quicker, or if it's a task, who else can help me do this so I don't have to try and keep doing it by myself. So that's the overwhelm side of things. Now, if we go over to procrastination, we procrastinate for a few reasons. One is overwhelm, which is why this video is linked together. We get overwhelmed, or we don't know what's going on, or we're confused, and so we end up doing nothing. If we're like, I don't know what to do next, I'm confused, there's so much going on, let me just pull out my phone and scroll Instagram for a while. That's what happens. We know we should be doing things, but it's confusing, or there's too much going on, or it's overwhelming, and then that leads to procrastination, right? So that's the one thing. So when you get overwhelmed in order, and plan it and go step by step by step, if you need to ask any questions about the thing you're procrastinating on, do that. And worry about what is next. Just go, what's next here? Don't worry about how. There's an analogy I like to use. It's about the staircase. It's like you don't stand at the bottom of the staircase and look up to the top and say, how am I going to get up there? You just take the next step, and then the next step and the next step, and you keep going like that. And then you get to the top, and then you look down and go, oh, that's how I made it. That's how I got up there. So the same thing is in everything in your life. Don't worry about how, just think about what. What's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? And you'll get there. You'll get up that level to wherever you need to go. And so by getting it out and putting it in step-by-step format, you're just following that then, and you won't need to procrastinate on it, because you know where you're going, and if there's any questions, you have it ask whoever, so then it just clears up the confusion. The second thing that leads to procrastination is it not being important enough to you. You know, the thing that you're procrastinating on, I always say, imagine if I had a gun to your head and I was going to shoot you and your family if you didn't get this thing done. I would tell you easily, and you'd probably know that too, that you would get that thing done. You would do whatever you had to do to get that thing done, because the reason why is powerful. Like, it's big enough. You don't want to die, and you don't want your family to die. So the reason for you doing it is so big, so powerful. You know, it's such a big why. And so that's why you do it. Now, if you don't have that big enough why for doing something, you're procrastinating on it, and that's just what happens. So what I like to do is, if there is some procrastination coming up, if it's a certain subject, like if it's just in your work in general, or if there's a specific thing in your job, what is really good to do, and yes, it takes time, and yes, it takes work, but this is why so many people do it. People are like, oh, I just want to watch a video and it'll be fixed. Or I just want to, magically do something and it'll be fixed. This will take a bit of effort, but it's well worth it, and I guarantee you that for sure. When I wrote my first book, I listed 500 reasons of how writing that book will help me in health, in fitness, in relationships, in business, in finances, in my social life, in every single area, and how it will help my top 5 values. And I linked it all together, and then so there was no procrastination. Every spare second I had, I was like, you know, and it was on the front of my mind. I was writing things down, and I was writing it, and it took me not very long at all to write that book, because I could see how important it was. I made all these neural links together, and I call this neural linking. So I saw how important writing that thing was to me, because I'd made all of these links. So back to you, if you find yourself procrastinating on the thing, or if it's a complete topic, if it's your job and everything, what I want you to do is list 50 to 100 to 150 to 200, just keep going. List as many as you can. Keep it open document and write more and more and more every single day, and then read over them and make it important to you. Make that task more important to you, because then you would do it and you won't even think about it. Because procrastination is only a thing if you're doing it. Like if you're doing something, you're like, oh wow, I'm not procrastinating on this. That doesn't happen. You just get in and do it, right? It's the same with motivation. You're not like, wow, I'm so motivated today to do this. You're just doing it. You know, so it's procrastination and motivation is only a thing when we don't have it, or when we're doing procrastination, right? Or when we are procrastinating. So it's only a thing. Now, the other thing is, when you have all of this procrastination, ask, how's it benefiting me? How's it helping me? And link it to the things that are most important to you. What are the areas in your life that you love doing? You know, if you love working out, if you love hanging out with your mates, if you love doing some kind of arts or craft, or if you love anything like that, how is doing that task going to help that? It may seem like there's no links to start with, but they will be there. You just have to look harder, and they will come over time. And then when you can make those links, you'll find that this thing that you want to procrastinate on will no longer procrastinate, because you can see how important it is for you. So those are the few steps to do. So let's just recap a little bit. Overwhelm, the best thing to do for overwhelm is get whatever you can out of your head down onto paper, so you can see it, so it's there, and it looks a lot less than it is up here. As I said, if you had 5 things to do, and I said, I've got to do this, 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 that seems like a lot. But if you have a list of 5 things, you're like, oh, that's not much. So it's a completely different mindset when you switch it around and get it out of here and down onto paper, whether that's money, targets, things you need to pay, whether it's things you need to do during your day, or whatever it is, just get it out of your head. The second thing with procrastination is we procrastinate because it's not important enough to us. So that's where the linking comes in, and link it to all of your values, why it's important to you, how it's going to help you in every area of life. Right, 50, 100, 150, 200 or more links, and that you'll just start doing it, and you'll start procrastinating less. The other reason why we procrastinate is because of the overwhelm, is because of the confusion. We don't really know what we're doing. And so when you can just go, what's next, what's next, what's next, worry about the what, not the how, and you'll get those things done. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your comments if you have anything else coming up, and do that little exercise. It's really good to do on anything, even if you're not procrastinating. It takes a little bit of work, yes, but dive into it. When you do the work works. So don't forget to like, subscribe this video, and I will see you on the next one.